Whoever wants to go first.
Hi, I'm Jennifer. In fall, I'm going to Swapper. I don't actually know. I'll just go first. Hey.
We'll go next. I'm Vincent. I'm going to be a freshman at Cornell next year. And
I'm Andrew. I'm going to be a freshman at Cornell next year.
I can go next. I'm Brandon, and I'm going to be a first year at Duke next year.
I'm Ruoming. I'm going to be a second-year student at Princeton next year, studying computer science.
Okay, so it appears that some of our panelists are not here, but we're just gonna go ahead and move on. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. So I am the vice president of the Tidewater SCA. So let's just start off with college essays and advice for seniors. So if you guys have a response to this, just please unmute and just give us your response.
I guess I'll start. I think one thing that a lot of people try and avoid when they start writing their essays is like cliche topics, but I don't really think that's an issue. It's more about the way you write about it. Like for example, I know a really common one is like a sports injury. And yes, a lot of people write about that, but there's a lot of different ways you can write about it. So I wouldn't try and avoid certain topics just because you think a lot of people write about it if it's really actually important to you.
I would say probably avoid writing a sob story. Like I promise your life probably isn't that sad. And if you try to write like a sad story, you're gonna be going against people who actually have like or really bad experiences. Like I think someone wrote about like having gone through like an actual like war zone. So if you're gonna write a sad story, maybe not. Try not to like unless you have like a really good one. I think it's better to like put some humor in it. Try to catch their attention if you have something that's like more special to you.
I'll also just add that make sure that you write about like how you grew and learned through whatever process or event that you're writing about. Like Jennifer said, sob stories aren't really good because it's just about what you went through and nothing about how like you grew or changed through that like challenging event. And that's what I think admissions officers are mostly looking for.
I also want to emphasize that this is your essay and no one else's. So like you're responsible for accepting whoever else's edits that you want. You don't have to accept anyone else's edits. So just selectively accept whatever you want because this is still your voice, and don't feel pressured to just, accept everything that everyone else is saying because again, this is your own story and you're in full control of that.
Okay, if no one else is gonna say anything, one of our panelists, Jenny Chen, just sent me her recording because she can't attend, so I'm just gonna play that. Please tell me if you can hear it.
Hi everyone, my name is Jenny Chen and
Can you hear that? Okay.
I'm an incoming freshman at Cornell University studying biology and society in the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. I'm going to be pre-recording my answers to a few questions, unfortunately, because I couldn't be at the live event. So to begin, some of the biggest advice I have for college essays and advice for incoming seniors right now is definitely first take it easy a little bit. Don't overload yourself on writing too many essays and worrying about too many different schools to apply to. So right now in August, if you're a rising freshman, you should probably have like an idea at the very least of what your Common App essay is going to be about. And a good place to be right now would be to have maybe 1 or 2 drafts of different ideas, because in the end, you're definitely going to end up changing your essay many times. Like I changed my essay. I completely rewrote my essay in the middle of the process, and it was still manageable, but it was really stressful. So I would also suggest having multiple ideas as backup for when you're writing your essays. But at this point in the summer, you shouldn't be too worried if you haven't done too much stuff, but definitely you should at least have an idea of what your essay is going to be about. And in general, academically for senior year, I would suggest first semester to take it easy on classes, because this is the last semester that your grades are actually going to matter for college apps. So it's really important to either keep that upwards trend going or to um even like just maintain your grades, because if you front load on really hard classes this semester, it's not really going to do you that much of a benefit because your classes from before are already probably rigorous enough. So make sure to take it easy academically. Extracurricularly, you should definitely have things going. And you should continue to do things second semester, because in the case that you get waitlisted, having crucial things to write about on your letters of continued interest is going to be very, very important, because I also I got off of the waitlist at Cornell. So that's definitely one thing. I'm so glad that I continued to do things second semester, because if I didn't, then I wouldn't have had anything to write about for those letters of continued interest. And they actually do matter a lot. So just make sure to keep that in mind. And also some advice for making college lists.
Okay, yeah. Does anyone have anything else to add? If not, we can move on to our next question, which is, how did you build your college list?
So one of the things I looked out for was to have like kind of a diverse, I guess, list. Not just of like I guess reputation, but just like I looked more specifically at, because I already knew I wanted to do engineering and probably biomedical engineering specifically within the School of Engineering. So I looked into rankings and the programs at different schools for that specific major, and I kind of built my list. And also, I'm sure you've probably heard of like safeties, targets, and reach schools, and you want to kind of have like a healthy balance of the three. You want to have like a few safeties, and of course the safeties, like some of them can be a lot, or no, like really little work to apply to. Because like I applied to UPitt as one of my safeties, and I did so because I didn't need to write any essays, I think, pretty sure. And yeah, and then I applied to other like targets and reaches based on the program.
I'd say for me, price was a big thing. I want to say, but like, if you're applying to a lot of colleges, make sure that if they're a school you get into, you'd actually want to go, especially financially. You should know around what like income bracket your family's in, and that'll like should let you know if you'll get a lot of aid or not. Some schools are just a lot more expensive than others. So before you start applying and writing essays for schools, just make sure if you get in, it's actually a place you can like, you'd want to go to, or even like afford.
Does anyone else have anything to add?
So when like building my college list, I already knew I wanted to like a computer science major, like prior to applying. So instead of looking at the overall rankings for colleges, just like, you know, in the nation or worldwide, just like kind of hone in on a major, because like it's like you get a more clear view of how they rank things, because I have no idea how they rank the overalls, to be honest. But for like computer science or like other majors, you can actually see like which colleges, what they're doing in that field, and like how they're ranked. So you can kind of build your college list from there for like your reaches, for, like some of the top schools. And then you can have like, you know, safeties, targets, you know, UVA in there, something like that.
Jennifer, do you have anything to add, or Ruoming?
I don't think there's much to add. It's good to have a few safeties. Like you don't need too much. I think like 1, 2, or even 3. That's good. Since safety schools are basically like schools that you think that you are guaranteed to get into. Focus on like target schools, which are more like you're pretty sure you're gonna get into, but there might be a small chance that you don't. And then for like reach schools, which are like Ivy Leagues or whatever, just like don't worry too much and just like focus on your essays. Most of the time you might find that there's a lot of essays that you can reuse, so you might find there's actually a lot more schools that you can apply to.
Yeah, I think the rest of the panelists pretty much covered it all. One thing I would add is if you're looking at a school that does offer like early action, early decision, definitely take advantage of that, because if you're pretty confident or pretty sure you want to go to that school and you get in early, it'll save you a lot of hassle and time for the rest of your senior year.
Okay, let's play Jenny's response.
Some advice for making college lists in general. So I would suggest you probably have a dream school at this point. You probably have schools that you really know that you want to go to. So you're definitely aware about early decision and early action rounds. Early decision round, I would save for your dream school, definitely. But the thing is, for those really, really high level, like Ivy League and like top 3 schools, unless unless I guess you're like a legacy student or in a similar demographic to that, I wouldn't suggest using my early decision or restrictive early action on those schools, because in the end you're going to be competing with a self-select group of people in that round, unless you're like very, very certain that you would do well in that smaller group of people who are mostly legacy students and very, very high, like very, very high achieving students. Then it would probably be better to do regular decision instead. And now I'm not saying that like most people aren't super high achieving. It's just like the people who do restrictive early action at these kinds of schools typically like would know that they would fare better, and as a result of that, then this round becomes even harder to get into for like normal students, I guess, if that makes sense. So early decision, I would suggest using it at a school like that isn't one of those schools.
Okay, I think that slightly moved on to the next question, but let's continue.
Yeah, so that may have tied in with the next question. But essentially, what do you guys have any suggestions on early decisions and early actions?
So just to first clarify the definitions of these two things, early decision is like an early application cycle. And basically, if you get an early decision, you have to go to the school, you're bound, and you can't really get out of the contract. And then early action is you can apply early and you'll get your decision early, but you aren't required to go there. So different schools offer different things. Some schools might offer both. Some schools offer one or the other. Some schools offer something called like restrictive early action, which is what Jennifer just mentioned, or Jenny just mentioned. And that's basically you can only apply EA to one school. And when I applied to Princeton, I applied early action, not restricted. So I was able to like apply to other schools early action as well. So I would say only do early decision if you are aware of the financials of your college So basically, like, make sure you really know, like Brandon mentioned earlier, you know, your income bracket, like what your family can afford, what the school will give you for financial aid. And if that is comfortable for your family, then definitely pursue early decision. But I don't think there's any disadvantage to applying early action, specifically like non-restrictive early action.
I would also like to say, it's definitely a good thing to like take advantage of early action, and early decision. But less so with early decision because you can only apply one school early decision. So, basically, in my process, I didn't do a very good job of taking advantage of the early deadlines, and I ended up, so I didn't get into my ED school. And then it was something like that. I didn't apply a lot early, and I ended up having a lot of work to do for regular, and my entire winter break was just me sitting at my computer typing. So in my advice, try to balance your workload between regular and early. That way you can like not be so stressed and overworked for like winter.
Definitely take advantage of early action, especially if it's non-restrictive. So you can just, any school that offers early action and you have time for the essays, just apply to them, because then you might get a lot of schools that you have a good backing to. So for me, I got early action from UNC Chapel Hill or UVA. So those were a lot of good schools that EA did help. So I had a good backing. For early decision, unless you're really sure that like you want to go to that school and you know you can handle it, that's when I would apply for early decision. Do keep in mind that there's actually early decision 1 and early decision 2. So if you have 2 schools that you would both like to go to, the one that you like more, you can apply early decision 1. And if your other school has early decision 2, then after early decision 1 comes out and you don't make it or you get deferred, then you can apply for early decision 2. So you have 2 chances for early decision.
Okay, so another one of our panelists just joined. So if you want to introduce yourself and then answer our question, please go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, my bad. Sorry about that. I totally forgot about the time. I thought it was 8:30, but yeah, hi, my name is Bowen. Oh, I've been playing on. Yeah, my name is Bowen, and I am a incoming freshman for the School of Visual Art at New York City. So I'll be attending the 2D animation program there. So if you get questions about art schools or creating art portfolios, I'm your person to ask, I guess, for this meeting. But yeah, cool.
Okay, so the question we're on right now is about early decision and early action and just like sharing your opinions about it or your thoughts about it. Or what you know.
Oh, do you want me to go on that or?
Yeah, a lot of people have shared already. If you just have anything to say.
Oh, okay, cool. So, in terms of our schools, I would say it's better to get on the early decision and early action, but it really depends on what school you are, because some art schools they don't have early decision or early action, and it's just like you know like obviously it's better because then you can get a seat earlier, because due to how most art schools are and they're private schools and they're a lot smaller, it's better to get your portfolio on there like as early as possible, because in our like when you're applying for our school you usually have to consider the extra time to not only keep up your grades and other stuff, as well as like things like your art portfolio and all that stuff. But obviously if you can make it like have all your artwork and like descriptions and stuff done during that time, it's obviously push it back. Like if your portfolio can be better, you think if you have the extra time and you can create your portfolio to a better extent, it's you could push back that time is what I think. But yeah, that's my opinion on that.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. So when you got your college application results, how did you decide on what college to go to? Whoever wants to go first.
I guess, well, for me, personally, I didn't really have many options because I didn't get into a lot of my choices. So I was at the end only really choosing between Cornell, UVA, and like Virginia Tech. And I ended up choosing Cornell because the I knew that the biomedical engineering program there was really good. And I also I kind of knew what it was like. My sister went there, and it was also just like kind of one of my top choices and where I wanted to go from the beginning mostly. So the choice was kind of clear cut for me.
I guess I'll go next. So there wasn't a lot of choices for me as well. I have a total of 3 different choices. The school that I committed to, School of Visual Art, and then also for the film program in RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology, as well as MICA, which is the Maryland Institute of Art, in Maryland, Baltimore, and I chose my school because of its reputation, because it is a pretty big name within the industry, and in terms of art schools are like just more of a way for me to like get better connection and all that other stuff, like to build a connection within the like community that I'll be working in, and SVA offers the biggest in terms of that. So that is a very large aspect of why I chose that college.
Does anyone else have anything to add? If you had multiple colleges you got into?
So I did have a lot of options. I think out of the 18 schools I got into, I think 18 schools I applied to, I got into around like 13-ish. But I did narrow them down to UVA and Swarthmore. I chose Swarthmore mostly because it was the school that I liked most. I also took into account a lot of the requirements that the schools had when selecting classes. For example, I think UVA has a language requirement, which was kind of scary for me since I didn't want to take Spanish again. Whereas in Swarthmore, it didn't. And Swarthmore was my ED2 as well. And even though I got deferred, I still liked the school a lot. And I felt like, hey, might as well if I got accepted. So, yeah.
Okay, if no one has anything else to add, I will be playing Jenny's response now.
For me, my college results didn't actually go too well at first. I ended up getting into my safeties rolling, which was really great, like assurance to have very early in the game. But then when it came to regular decision, I got either rejected or waitlisted from all of the schools I applied to. And I got waitlisted at Cornell and Barnard College of Columbia University. And then I was really stressed out about those wait lists, but then I ended up like tapping into all of the extracurriculars I was doing second semester, and then spending a lot of effort writing and perfecting letters of continued interest. And then I actually ended up getting off of both of the wait lists that I was on. And then it became another thing to like decide which school to go to after that. But I would suggest like safety schools are very important because there's no guarantee of anything, since college admissions in the end are a lot of just luck and perseverance. So make sure that you really enjoy your safety schools, that you really actually like your safety schools. And if your safety schools are truly safety schools that you know for sure that you can get in, then you only really need 2 or 3 of them at most, because like if you enjoy the safety school that you're going to, you don't need more safety schools, if that makes sense. So another thing that I would say is just make sure to like keep a positive mindset the entire time, because this is probably going to be one of the most stressful like periods that you're gonna have to go through in high school. So also for supplementals, you should definitely have like multiple drafts of answers to different supplementals, because many supplementals, as you already know, like have very similar topics, very similar essay topics. So when you're applying to different schools, you can kind of like mix and match them a little bit. There's probably going to be a community essay as a common essay topic for your round, and there's probably going to be like a why school essay that you should be able to like change out the different clubs and extracurricular activities and classes that you could talk about at each school, like, but have like a general framework for that essay. So yeah, if you have any other questions, feel free to like message the coordinators and I can answer more questions. And I hope everyone has a great day.
Okay, so she kind of moved on to the next question. So let's go to that one.
Yeah, so for this one, if you could go back in time, what would you have done differently?
All right, this is a pretty easy one to answer for me. Something I definitely wish I had done differently was work on my stuff, like all the essays and stuff earlier, and like not only start working on them earlier, but just like keep up a good like rate of work. At the very beginning, especially for like my early decision round, it was hard because I was spending a lot of time playing volleyball. And we made it really far in the season too. So I kind of had to like go to practice a lot. I couldn't really skip practice either. I couldn't skip games because they were starting to become really important. And um yeah, that kind of stopped me from working on essays and stuff like that a lot. And I ended up okay, I remember now. I had planned to apply to 3 schools early, but I only ended up finishing my early decision school. So my other 2 early action schools got pushed to regular decision. And then I applied to Virginia Tech 2 weeks later in the early round. But that also increased my workload a lot because I had to finish all my essays regular decision for Georgia Tech and UVA, which I planned to apply early initially.
This kind of ties back to the first question, but I think I definitely would have asked less people to just like revise or take a look at my Common App essay. Just because everyone's different, and some people will say, "Oh, this is really good," some people, "This is really bad," and then you're kind of just like, it's just the more people that are reading and adding edits to your stuff, well, I think Ruoming mentioned this earlier, but it becomes kind of, it's not really your writing anymore. And since everyone has like, I guess a different style of writing, it just sometimes, I don't know, it wasted a lot of time for me. And I probably, looking back, only would have asked like maybe 3-4 people max.
So I would say to carefully split your early action, early decision, and like regular decision colleges, because don't feel pressured to apply to every like public college early action, because those are like the ones that mostly have early action. From like my experience, the private ones really only have early decision or regular decision. And like once you finish this early action colleges, like the supplementals, don't, I know you're gonna feel relieved because you'll have completed the due date for some colleges, but make sure to do your regular decision ones, because like just imagine it. Just think about if you have to apply to like, I don't know what colleges you guys are interested in, but like maybe like all the Ivies, maybe it's like 7, 8, and then more colleges on top of that. That's like maybe like 60 pages of just drafts of essays. And you don't want to cram those into 2 weeks, like the end of December winter break, because they're due like January 1st, or like around that time. And you do not want to cram all those essays in 2 weeks. So just make sure to, after you're done with the early action, just start working on a regular decision. You're gonna feel relieved, but just keep working and don't procrastinate on those.
Adding on to the procrastination point, I think something that would have helped me a lot is setting kind of like mini deadlines for myself, especially over the summer, so like getting started early, because there's so many different rounds and so many different deadlines to keep track of. Tracking these things in a spreadsheet and also adding your own deadlines, for example, you want to maybe have like your general Common App application done by a certain time, and then afterwards you can work on like your Common App essay and like your supplemental essays. So setting different deadlines for these things will help you stay more organized and just alleviate a little bit of the stress.
Yeah, I would say start writing essays earlier. I definitely procrastinated on my own essays. Even with like, I supposedly were supposed to set deadlines for myself, but I definitely did not follow them. I probably should have, because getting towards the actual deadline for the applications definitely made it more stressful. I would definitely keep track of all the different prompts you might have, because again, you might find there's a lot of similar ones and you can reuse a lot of your written essays. So you can like write those earlier so you can have more time to focus on the more unique ones.
Yeah, for me personally too, all the above. And I would have applied to more schools if I had more time. Because I think by the end of it, because most of my schools have all different prompts in terms of like what each school want. And the moment I finished like writing the descriptions for my art pieces, I was so burned out that I do not want to write any more essays. So that kind of resulted in me not wanting to like write more essays to apply. And also by the time I already like sort of received my acceptance towards the current school that I'm going to, because I applied early action for that school. And now that I think that I thought about it, I definitely probably should have written more, like, just applied for more schools, simply because just to see like to get more scholarship opportunities, and like that would have like, I guess, juggled a lot like more choices in that sense.
I'd like to answer a question in the chat, if that's okay. The one about sports and hobbies, I feel like they definitely did help my application a lot, not just to like list and put in like your activities and all those kinds of things, but also just as experiences to write about, because both of my personal essays, both of my drafts were about hobbies. My first one was about tennis, and then I scrapped that and wrote about orchestra instead, violin, and it definitely helped me a lot with like having, I guess, hardships or lessons to write about. And so yeah, I think it helped a lot with my application. And about seeking advice for essays, I would say a good choice is your English teacher. They obviously can help you a lot with just I guess grammar, like mechanics, as well as just communicating like your point and making that clear and concise. And also I would say I would avoid looking for or asking people in your own grade, because they're not they don't necessarily have like more experience than you, or I guess yeah, I guess like I would just try to ask like someone who's been through the whole process and kind of knows what they're doing, rather than like someone in your own grade.
Okay,
And just to add on to that, at the end of the day, whether it's your English teacher or it's a friend or upperclassman, they're just making suggestions. None of them is like you know, if they I'm sorry, like all of it's suggestions and it's something that you should consider. It's just a way for you to think about like, hey, like what if I wrote about it this way? Like what I personally think is better. So don't take it to heart. Your friends, they not all of them are like could be really good writers. So just take what they say into consideration and then think about if that's what you really want your essay to say.
I'm gonna add to that. So it's better to find like your own voice in your writing style to make yourself stand out than have a lot of people go over it and sort of get rid of like what the essence of that essay, like you, if that makes sense. Because like you want to stand out there, because the college of like acceptance, their admission, they're going through like hundreds and thousands of essays each day. So yeah.
Okay, so we do have 2 questions from the audience from before, and they are, one, what are the top 3 factors that make my application stand out? So if anyone wants to answer that.
I mean, I don't think there is a right answer to that question. What I would say is just like play it to your strengths, like what you think your strengths are, because I mean, like if you look online or anywhere, like you're not going to find an answer to that. Like what will get you into college? Nothing will get you into college. There's not one single thing. It's just, like what do you believe that you're confident in, whether it's like your writing abilities, so make sure that shines through in your essays, or it's like your academics and like you can really emphasize that in your application, or if it's like you do a lot of sports or you do a lot of other extracurriculars, like you can really make that shine. So I don't think it's helpful to try to, check off some boxes to in hopes of getting into college. Um, so yeah, so just like don't worry too much about that. Just think about like what you're currently good at and how you can really make that shine.
Yeah, so going off what Roaming said, if you're like a junior right now, about to be a rising senior, or rising senior actually, your stats, like your academics, extracurriculars, they're kind of set. The only thing you can really do well now is the essays. You want to try to make those the best you can. Now you can cram like more extracurriculars, but the colleges will see that. They'll see the dates that you started and stopped, or not stopped, like started to like current, they'll see that you crammed them right before college application season. They'll see through that. And yeah, I think I have a classmate who kind of tried to do that. They pushed back all their applications to like regular decision, no early action, no early decision. They wanted to get more extracurriculars in. I wouldn't say it worked all right. It didn't. I don't think those are the reasons that he got into those colleges, but it didn't really help him that much, I'd say. So just you can really only change your essays right now. So just focus on those. Keep your grades up, but don't try to cram in classes unless you're going for valedictorian. But yeah, just they won't help you much. Your stats are already set, basically.
It's important to remember that, especially if you're applying to some of those more prestigious schools like Ivy Leagues, that everybody who's applying to those schools has good grades. They have that perfect SAT score. So instead of worrying about academics, which if you're already set in that part, then just don't worry too much on that. Don't be afraid to embellish other things like your extracurriculars. Like if you're going to talk about being president of a club or whatever, talk about how like the things that you did. Don't be afraid to like show off a little bit, because you're not going to be able to stand out if you're too humble.
Okay, so another question that someone in the audience said was, who should I ask to write the letter of recommendation?
I can answer some of that, I guess. So preferably the ones who's related to your major, where you're gonna apply. So like obviously for art, like I asked in art teacher that I had outside of school, as well as in my English teacher who I had a really like stable connection with. So like it's and then there's also my counselor who's like I think required for the Common App, but so it's like important to like find teachers that that you have a good connection with, and those are usually like good secondary letter of recommendations. Like the first should always be like what your major is like sort of closest to. Like, you know, if you're going to into a science field, you ask the science teacher, that kind of stuff.
Some schools have specific requirements on who they want a recommendation from. Like they might specifically ask for a humanities teacher to write you one. So if you're gonna choose like teachers, choose people that are like closer to you, they might like understand you. Because you obviously you don't want a teacher who's gonna like only give you like basic words like, oh yeah, they were a great student, and they don't actually know how to like talk about you, like what makes you different from all the other students. So choose one who like you think will be able to talk about those. And if you have to choose, like the teacher might not know you very well, it's okay to like give them a resume so they have a few things to like talk about.
Okay,
And then
so
I do want to add one more thing. You don't have to only ask teachers that like in the class you just had. You can totally ask someone. Like I asked my AP chemistry teacher from 10th grade. It's not something like if you had a really good connection with a teacher back then, you shouldn't just rule them out just because like you didn't have them junior year. But I would say if you do want to pick someone 10th grade, make sure you like talk to them. Don't just, you know, avoid them junior year and then come up to me like, hey, can you write me a letter of recommendation? So
I would say most people kind of like don't really look at the counselor recommendation, but I've heard it's like pretty important because that's like the college's way of verifying what you're saying on your resume and your application, like the extracurriculars you've done, your character. Like the teachers kind of provide the colleges how you are in the classroom, maybe some character if you have a good connection with them. The counselor is like really someone who tells your story, and the colleges can kind of take those to heart because they're probably true because they're counselors, and you know, they'd probably get fired if they did any lying or anything. Like me personally, I had my IB counselor, or like IB coordinator, like international baccalaureate, which was pretty helpful because she kind of like knew all our like the IB students in our school pretty well. So I would say that the counselor recommendation like helped me. And yeah, so just kind of focus on that, maybe build a relationship with them, send them your resume, because me personally, I didn't talk to my regular counselor at school much, so I don't think they knew me at all. So just build a relationship with them.
I see a question in the chat saying, how's the food in your college and how long did it take to get over your homesickness?
So this is specifically for my college, Princeton. I can't really speak for other colleges. The food was fine. I'm not too picky of an eater, so I don't think I would be the best person to answer this. But for me, like it was fine. It wasn't as bad as people make it out to be. Yeah, it was really fun. There were a lot of options. I'm vegetarian and there were still a lot of options for me. So, I mean, if that's something important to you in your college search, definitely keep that. Just like keep an eye out for that. You know, you can look at other students' reviews of the food. Um, but overall, there are a lot of options, and if you're not satisfied with the options on campus, you can always go off campus and look at the local restaurants. And I'm sure, like at any college, they'll have those local restaurants specifically targeting college students. In terms of the homesickness, I never really got homesick. Thankfully, I have spent like about a month away from home before I went to college, so I think that kind of accustomed me to having some distance from home, especially going to an out-of-state school. But for I know that a lot of my friends did experience a lot of homesickness my first semester, and for them, you know, like one thing that helped with them was just staying in touch with family often, calling them a couple times a week, and also just talking with your friends here. You'll make a lot of friends when you come to college, so just staying involved on campus will kind of take some of that homesickness away. I can also answer the other questions about college right now, or I can wait till later. It's up to the coordinators of this event.
Okay, I'll just read the question. Did you join any clubs and do you have time to do extracurriculars at all? I think this is for college.
Yeah, so I definitely joined a lot of clubs. So I would say like your first semester in college will kind of resemble your first year in high school in that, like people are always encouraging you to try new things. And I definitely agree with that. For your first semester, I would say, like don't focus on loading all of your classes on that first semester because not only are you transitioning to somewhat of a harder academic workload, but you're also just getting used to like being on campus, being away from home, living by yourself, maybe for the first time in your life and also making friends through extracurriculars. So at the beginning of the year, there will always be like a student activities fair. So that's where you'll get to know all the clubs on campus. And I definitely recommend like trying different things, going to informational sessions, signing up for email lists, and you don't have to commit to everything, but just, getting that exposure is going to be really helpful for making friends and also just discovering what you like to do in college. So some of the clubs that I joined were, first of all, some of the things were continuations of what I did in high school. For example, I was really involved in student government in high school. So in college, I also joined the student government there. I also joined like some event planning things. I also looked into like some more like technical academic clubs. So I looked into robotics. I also dabbled in like the electric racing club. And I think it's also important to try new things in college. So, like just every semester, maybe like try to put yourself out there. And for me, that was joining the newspaper at my school. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to commit to it for like all 4 years. It's just trying new things and meeting new people through that.
Okay, last question for you is, was it easy for you to transition to college? And can you please share your first semester experience?
Yeah, so I would say like academically, it wasn't that bad. Especially coming from like I went to Ocean Lake, so I did all like the math and science classes. So I would say like the rigor of those classes it was definitely easier than college, but it wasn't as big of a jump as I was expecting. Um, but I would say like mostly for my first semester, like the biggest transition was just, like living on my own and like navigating campus. I think navigating campus is one of the biggest things first year students struggle with is just like not getting lost. So that might take you, like a couple weeks, maybe even a month to just get accustomed to campus. But I wouldn't like I would say like if you're challenging yourself in high school and if you're taking those hard classes like AP classes, like you'll be fine for your college classes your first semester. Um, and in terms of just like making friends, like getting involved on campus, there are a lot of opportunities as a first year student to do that, especially near the beginning. So once you go to orientation, like you'll have a lot of opportunities to meet people. And one thing I would say is, talk to as many people as you can, sit with people in the dining hall. You never know who you'll bump into. And that's how I met a lot of my current friends is just like, going up to random people and just talking with them in like the first month of my first semester. So overall, it was really fun. Just make sure, like you soak up that experience because after your first semester, it's just gonna get harder. So first semester is really when you have the time to, like make friends and you don't have to worry too much about academics.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing. Now I have a question for everyone. It's, did you guys visit most of the schools you applied for? And if so, when did you visit them?
I visited basically all of the schools that I applied to. I think there were like two that I didn't actually go to, which were Amherst and Williams. I visited during the summer of my rising senior year. Yeah, so it's like last July, August-ish. Um, at this point, they might be going through like the last few tours.
Personally, I didn't visit a lot of my colleges. Like, I did take a trip the summer before, what's it called? Senior year. And I visited a lot of colleges that I ended up not applying to. So for me, I think visiting wasn't that important. It was more about programs, academics, and the campus. If it's nice, it was just kind of a plus.
So I've also visited most of the schools I've applied to, and I think it's better to like visit than not, mostly because then you get what like the city, like the place you're gonna spend, like unless you're gonna transfer, like the place you're gonna spend your next 4 years of life in most of the time. So like it's like better to get a like sort of a feel and vibe of what the places are like and like how easy access are, like transportation and all that stuff, if you care about those types of things, like if you want to explore out of out of campus. But and to answer that question that was just in chat, yes, I did take the tours, and for most of, yeah, for like the school organized tours, yes. And like usually like they're gonna be introducing a lot of like, you know, the school, like in like the better way, obviously, because it's tours. But like after the tours, like like usually like I would walk around like the campus with like my family and stuff, and just to like look around a little bit, snoop around a little bit. And yeah, and maybe like ask a couple of like students that are like maybe like just wandering around, a few questions if you got any, and usually they're happy to answer them.
Similar to Vincent, I didn't really visit any of my schools. I visited, I think two out of this, like two out of maybe 8 schools I applied to. I did visit the school I'm currently at, and that was 2 summers before, well, the summer before my junior year I visited. And I don't really think it's that important to visit a school, especially if you're applying to out of state schools. Sometimes that it just isn't feasible to visit. And I feel like a lot of the information that they'll provide on those guided tours you can find online. But it all, like again, like this was mentioned before, it is nice to get a feel for like the not just the campus itself, but also the surrounding city, because like yeah, like you are living there for 4 years, and it's important that you enjoy where you're going to school, not just like the academics, like the extracurriculars, stuff like that. Um, but if it's not possible to visit, it's not the end of the world. You can find a lot of information online, just through other sources such as like current students who go there, or like your counselor maybe. So
Okay, there's another question in chat that says, what one or two things did what one or two things you did made you get into your dream school? So I guess like what things did you do that made you get into your dream school? And then if you could give high schoolers one or two pieces of advice, what would they be?
Personally, I would say it's really hard to like say what one or two things like made me get into my school. So I can't really speak on that. But about like advice for high schoolers, I would say if like you're younger, maybe like freshman, sophomore year, I would kind of try to be smart about my extracurriculars. Like, say if you already know you might be interested in something, I would say kind of shape your extracurriculars to explore more of like that topic. Say if you wanted to do like computer science, maybe start learning coding, look for like research opportunities, something like that. And kind of so that way you can build your extracurriculars and kind of make it clear to like admissions officers that you've, I guess, have like developed an interest and have done something to satisfy your interest in this field.
I believe there is one question tying back to the tours about when you guys visited tours, did you guys reserve guided tours or just self tours?
So I did guided tours, which I did find pretty useful. There's a lot of things that you definitely could find online, but I also liked having someone like tell us about it so you could actually see it in person. Especially since some of the schools let us see like a dorm room or the residence halls. which is pretty useful because if like campus life is important, and it was pretty important for me because academics is fun and all, but I don't want to be spending my life in college miserable because my room sucks and I can't get comfortable. So finding out if like what the dorms are like, or even if they just have AC, because some schools don't have AC, is pretty important. You might be able to ask more specific questions that might not be online. And if you like find about school traditions, which is pretty fun and are things that you might not get to research on, and you can write those in your essays, which shows that you actually do care about the school.
Okay, there's a new question in the chat that says, do you all know how to drive now? Do you feel like
No, I don't drive.
do you feel like driving is an essential skill to be college ready?
No. No. Mostly just because some schools don't even allow first years to have a car or park, and parking, I've heard, is a bit of a hassle. So it just depends on what school you're going to. I don't really know how to drive. I have my permit, but not a license, and driving is in the progress of being learned. So as a rising freshman, I don't think driving is going to be too much. And some schools are like, they have a lot of things. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it definitely depends on what school you're going to. I do know how to drive, but at Princeton, first year students and second year students aren't allowed to have cars. And even once you become an upperclassman, you definitely don't need a car. Because like our campus is so small, everything is very walkable. There's no need for a car. Parking is very expensive. But for a school, for example, like UVA, it has a much bigger campus. A lot of people live off campus after your first year. It does become more useful to have a car on hand. Um, so yeah, it depends on like if your college is in a city. If it's in a city, like you're probably not going to need a car. But if it's in somewhere more of like a secluded space where you need a car to, get groceries or like just even go to class, then it's important to know how to drive.
Does anyone have any more questions to ask our panelists?
I'm one of the parents. So can I say something to other like the parents here? I think we have some parents here, right? 我是以前是张老师哈，现在我不在中文学校教了。I have two kids. One is in graduate school. The other, like Vincent, is going to college. I do have a little bit experience. I suggest all the parents, like at least have one chance to talk to your kids' counselor, because each counselor each counselor handles like I say hundreds students. Most of students never like they don't know them much. They just know their name, the classes they took or something. And they will ask you about their resume, their things, but they're all in like paper, like they just see it. They don't know like a really, really like in person. So for both of my kids, before their college application, like a few months before, I just had an appointment with a counselor and visited them. Printed, like I took their resume with us when we talk about my children's the school things, because they have a lot of things they don't know. Even like Vincent is a good student at school, like the counselor knows Vincent in person, but there's a lot of things she didn't know. So you talk to them, Vincent's you introduce your family, the background of Vincent. Was Vincent interested what Vincent did outside of the school? Like Vincent did a lot of violent stuff outside school, and did research of those things. Even she knew something about it, but when you introduce those things, like more clear for her, and then you ask her about Vincent's, like ask her about your kids' things at school, what she knows or he knows. You know, just let the counselor know your kids, you know, better. So when they write the recommendations, like, I mean, I don't say it will be different, like at least for him or for her, like it's a little bit more vivid, right? It's more, you know, a person thing. Yeah, that's the thing I did. Just want to share with the parents. Thank you.
Thank you for giving us that advice. Someone asked in chat, does extracurricular count as something you didn't sign up for? I don't really know what that means. Can you specify or reword it? If you didn't sign up for an activity, does it count as an extracurricular?
I mean, did you do the activity? I still don't really get the question.
Well, I mean, I think anything you do outside of school, it can count. For example, my parents own like a small restaurant, and I helped out there for like a long time. It's not something I signed up for or like I wanted to do, but I did it, and I count that as an extracurricular. And I talked about it in my application. So I think just anything you did outside of school, it can count as extracurricular.
Yeah, just as a general rule, it's just like outside of school. So as long as you attended it and you can describe it and like describe what you did, then you should be good.
Okay, are there any more questions you guys want to ask the panelists? Okay. So that's gonna be the end of this event. Thank you guys so much for thank you panelists for coming and giving us your advice and taking time out of your schedule. And thank you to everyone else for coming. We do have a YouTube channel. I think that's where this is gonna be posted. I can send that link in chat very quickly. But yeah, there's also 2 more years of college Q&As. So if you want to go check that out, you can go to the YouTube channel too. So yeah. Okay, thank you guys for coming.
Can I have a few words?
Yeah.
Okay. About the extracurriculum or like outside school activities, right? Some of the parents I heard they're trying to make all these things like I want this to be useful for college application. I want my kids do this, or they ask me, is this very useful for the college application or things? To my opinion, because my two kids, they are 9 years apart, right? So the college application, like what we are seeing, the world is changing too fast, and all the college applications and those colleges they're taking students, they are changing. So nobody can predict like 2 years later, 5 years later. So I mean, any activities, any things your kids are doing, your kid is doing, as long as they're doing things good and they're interested in, for me, like I suggest you encourage them do it. So you never know, maybe, something like you see is useless for college application, but they are because they're interested in those things and they're doing good and they're keep doing it, they're seeing like more opportunities. You never know 2 years or 3 years later what's going to happen. Or when they write the college applications, so they are going to put those very small stuff into it will, you know, make this essay sparkling or something. You never know. So I mean, 用中国的话来讲，用中文来讲，就是不要功利心太强。只要孩子感兴趣做好的事情，一定要鼓励他们做，做到他们能做多好做多好。因为现在的世界，我们做家长呢，就是说，你想象不到以后的世界会是什么样子的。我就是这个意思，我的一点经验，谢谢，不好意思。
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing.